Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Joffrey Noodle Legs here today with another Noodle film review. Today we are looking at Incident in a Ghostland on Arrow Videos. This is the Blu-ray edition with the booklet, which is pretty cool. So this story is a film. It's a bit of a confusing tale. It sort of starts off with two girls and a mother, and they're in a car, like on a. First of all, I thought it was on a road trip, but they're not. They're actually on their way to a new house, which I think they've inherited from their aunt, who's maybe passed on, and they're moving to this new house. One of the girls is a bit reluctant. She's a bit upset because she's had to leave her boyfriend behind or whatever at the old house. Anyway, they're on this road trip having a chat and stuff, and one of the girls is into stories, horror stories, and she's reading a Lovecraft story in the car. And so they're going along, and then the mother's sort of saying, well, you know, one day you're going to be a great horror story writer. Anyway, so that they're going along, and as they're going along, some really strange kind of like ice cream van or sort of candy van, whatever they call it, goes past them. Really strange and really like a bizarre looking thing, very similar to sort of Jeepers Creepers, that bit. And it goes past them, and there's strange people inside. And the girls sort of wave at them and this sort of thing. But yeah, it's a bit bizarre. Then they turn up at like this sort of store en route to the into their new house in the new town, and there's a woman working there, and they sort of talking. One of the young daughter's talking to her in there, and then the girl looks at the newspaper, and she reads in the newspaper that there's there's a killer or killers about, and they're going in, breaking into people's houses and killing the parents, and sort of torturing, abducting the young girls and that of the family. So she reads this, and while the other sister comes in and stuff like that. Anyway, after a while they go back on the road, and they're back at then we see them arriving at at the house, which is a typical sort of horror looking sort of film house. So they're looking at this, and they go into the house, and the house is full of really old weird objects, like old dolls, and really sort of like scary looking sort of stuff, like dolls. And yeah, it's really bizarre. So the aunt, who ever lived there before, was a collector of these dolls, and there's one point when they open a cupboard and this doll sort of comes out of them and gives them like a bit of a jump scare, sort of like an Annabelle almost sort of doll. And then they're in the house, and while they're sort of like looking around, unpacking, that candy van pulls up outside, and the mother's upstairs, and she's sorting out some things, and then she gets attacked by someone who's in the van, like this big large sort of ogre sort of guy, sort of runs into her, rams her into the wall and starts beating on her. And then the two daughters are sort of dragged down into the cellar by another guy. And the mother, who isn't actually dead, tries to defend the girls against these guys by attacking them with a knife and things like this. And it looks like the mother's managed to overpower them and kill these two sort of killers, if you like. It's kind of strange. It's all happening so quick, and we don't know what's going on. We don't know who these people are, what's happening, or whatever. But then bizarrely, it cuts to this sort of future where the girl that does the reading of the horror stories is now a famous author. Elizabeth, her name is, and she's wrote these books, and she's on TV, sort of doing a sort of publicity for them and all this kind of thing. And she gets a mysterious phone call at home from her sister, who, with her mother, still live in that house. And the sisters tell her to come home. You must come home and help. You must come home quick. So she goes back there, And in the film it gets really, really strange. It sort of tries to convince you that she's actually never left there. And this is all this famous story thing that she's an author is in her head. And that the mother was killed by these two killers. She didn't kill them, they killed her. And it sort of twists and turns on all over the place. And that's all I'm going to tell you. It's quite a strange story. It really, really is. What do I think of Incident of a Ghostland? It was okay. It was an okay film. It's one of those horror films that I think tries too hard to be a horror film, if you know what I mean. And then what happens then? It loses the plot because it spends so much time trying to create a sort of scary atmosphere and sort of jump scares and sort of scary sort of things to look at, like scary dolls and a sort of spooky story, because the sister never got over this attack and she was still living in the cellar. Yeah, the sister lives in the cellar and the mother's had her locked up living in the cellar. And the mother's quite blasé about everything. But then we find out that maybe the mother was killed initially and this girl, it's all in that girl's head. We don't really know, and it's one of those sort of bizarre stories that maybe after a few watches it might fall into place, but I've only watched it the once. The pluses of the film, it's a great transfer. It looks really nice. It looks really, really cool, and the atmosphere is built up around this sort of like look of the film and the sort of like look of the house, which is amazing. And the characters look quite creepy. The family look quite creepy. The killers look creepy, and all that works really well. So it was going so well, but then they overdid it. They overdid it, tried to do too many scary things and try and make it scary. And when you do that, it stops becoming scary and starts becoming predictable. And I found the last half an hour quite predictable. But yeah, the plus is like it looks really, really cool. The actors were acted quite well. There's no famous actors in it, but they acted quite well, and it was pretty cool. Negatives, like I said, it was over. The director and whoever's in the made the film has overdone it. They've done too much to try and make it too scary. So I'm going to score this film an okay watch and give it a 6 out of 10. And it loses quite a few points just because it wasn't scary, it's predictable, and it was overdone. It was overly made to try to make this a really scary sort of mixture of a ghost story mixed with a serial killer story mixed with a revenge sort of and with a torture sort of story, all mixed together, and it doesn't work. Sort of falls apart a little bit, but it's still an okay watch. I still had fun for what I watched it, although when I come out of it I was like, okay, you know, I didn't feel oh, that was amazing or that was good or anything. I just thought, yeah, that was okay. And that's what I'm giving it, an okay score, 6 out of 10. And I think that's a good score for the film. Any of you guys seen Incident in the Ghostland? If you have, let me know down below what you thought of it. You probably loved it, but I just think it was, it promises so much, and it tried to give so much, and by doing that, it kind of took it away from the film, because it was not scary. The jump scares weren't there. The story wasn't there, because it started to go one direction. Like, if it had carried on with the direction where the story was, she'd grown up and she'd become like this famous writer and wrote this book called The Incident of Ghostlands, which told the tale of her and her sister not being attacked by these killers, and the mother managed to overcome them. And they went down that storyline, and she went back, and her mother's a bit twisted. That would have been awesome, and I think I would have liked that. Or if the other way they could have done it was to have done it properly, because what I come out of this story is that the mother died, and that they've been kept in this house by these two killers since. That's what I think is what's happened, but it hasn't been followed through properly, and the story is confusing. and you don't get that from that. And I think if it had took either one of those directions, this would have been probably an 8 out of 10 film. But because it didn't, it started to go that way, but oh no, we'll go this way. No, we'll go that way. No, it was like that, and it just, no, it took it out of the film. 6 out of 10. Guys, anyway, I hope you like this little review. Check it out if you want to check out something that's a bit different. If you like your horrors to be a bit sort of, what was that about, sort of thing, then that might be for you. Not for me, but it was all right. Check out some horror channels, guys, till my next video. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Manview Film, RS Designs, Pizzlewell, I Am the Ice Lord, Sarah of Horror, Cat Watches Horror Movies, Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House. Until next time, look after one another, look after yourselves, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.